James Comey swinging for the fences, and he's likely to connect when it relates to Lindsay Halligan, the Department of Justice, and their perverse prosecution of the former FBI director. 2 new motions have been filed. They're going to go on a supremely fast track. You're going to have to stay on legal AF just to keep up with it. One to disqualify Lindsay Halligan. The other to argue vindictive prosecution is at the root of the DOJ and Donald Trump going after Comey. If he's right about any of those things, this indictment is going to be dismissed with prejudice, meaning forever. What else happened in the Comey case? What's going to happen next and how quickly we're going to get there is all covered on the midweek edition of Legal AF, and here is a clip.
Why don't we pivot to James Comey and what's going on with James Comey? So just to make everyone catch up to where we are, James Comey, the former FBI director, former United States attorney for the Southern District of New York, he has been on Donald Trump's hit list for quite some time. Donald Trump can't stand him. He's one of his enemies. And he has wanted him prosecuted for anything. And there was an investigation into him, into the Eastern District of Virginia, which is a U.S. Attorney's office. And they were investigating him and told the U.S. Attorney, Eric Siebert, that there's no case. And Eric Siebert agreed, there's no case. Line prosecutors looked at this, and several supervisors looked at it, and even the U.S. attorney who Trump appointed as an interim U.S. attorney. So he appointed him, and he could serve for 120 days until he was confirmed by the Senate, because U.S. attorneys, although they are known as inferior officers, there's a statute that says they have to still be appointed with the advice and consent of the Senate. They're important enough. So the checks and balances of our Constitution, the separation of powers. And James Comey, and Lindsay Halligan was, so back up. Eric Siebert, where I was appointed. He served out his 120 days, and the statute, which is 28 United States Code Section 546, specifically says that a president can put someone in interim for 120 days, and then when that expires, the courts may appoint somebody. And that's how it's supposed to work. It's like 120 days goes, and then the court gets to appoint somebody, and that person is appointed again until the Senate confirms somebody. And that's how things go. Well, Eric Siebert was named interim. The 120 days expired. And apparently, according to everybody, he's even though he's Republican, he's I don't know him at all, but he's a respected lawyer and a respected career prosecutor. And the judges voted him in. And so he was the interim United States attorney pursuant to that clause of Section 546. And when he told whomever, whether it was Pam Bondi or Donald Trump or God, why am I blanking on his name? The Eagle, Popot calls him Eagle. It'll come to me.
Todd Blanche?
Pardon?
Todd Blanche you talk about?
No.
Okay.
Ed Martin, Eagle Ed Martin. Sorry. Sometimes I can't, I don't know. Does things ever just leave your brain? I know. So I don't know if it was Ed Martin or Pam Bondi or who. And he basically said, look, there's no case. We're not bringing a case. We can't bring a case. There is nothing here. And Trump Trump got wind of it, didn't like it, and wrote a message to Pam Bondi, that famous message that now everyone is saying was an accident, right? He publicly tweeted and basically was like, Pam, in all caps. And basically, you have to go after Comey, and you have to, and Lindsay Halligan is great. She likes you, like this weird message, but basically telling her what to do and directing her to bring a case against Jim Comey. He fires Siebert and appoints Lindsay Halligan. She's never been a prosecutor. She was, I think, an insurance lawyer, has no experience. And within a couple of days, she indicts Jim Comey. And it was the reason that she did it when she did was the statute of limitations was about to run. And people resigned over this. Career prosecutors resigned. Nobody in the office would go into the grand jury with her. Nobody would sign the indictment. She signed it. The indictment has all sorts of errors. It's too thin. It probably isn't facially sufficient. She just clearly doesn't know what she's doing. And so the case is being prosecuted by all accounts, by all lawyers who have looked at this indictment. It's confusing. It's not substantive. And from what people can glean, the accusations are, it will never be proven beyond a reasonable doubt. This is just a crazy case. And so Comey hired one of the great lawyers in this country, Pat Fitzgerald, who was the U.S. attorney in Chicago, and he's just got an impeccable reputation. And I've never met him, but I've known of him forever. I mean, he's brilliant lawyer, great writer, and good friend of Comey's, and he brought him on the case. And so he's going to out-lawyer Halligan and everybody else in the Eastern District of Virginia. They asked for a quick trial date. They got a date for early January. I think it's January 5th. And that's common in the Eastern District of Virginia. They have a rocket docket. And Comey came out swinging today or this week with a couple of really incredible motions, beautifully written motions. And do you want to talk about them, Dina? Do you want to frame the motions?
Sure. So yeah, there were two motions. One is to disqualify basically his indictment because he's saying that Lindsay Halligan was improperly appointed. So technically she was not a valid DA when she saw it and signed that indictment. And then second is just a motion to dismiss the charges outright, saying that it is a violation of his free speech, as well as the due process violation that this is selective prosecution. He has a 60-page attachment of all the communications, all the public communications of Trump and Comey about each other. And just that alone is such strong evidence. I mean, to say the government is selectively prosecuting you or vindictively prosecuting, right? This is a violation of your due process, obviously is super high hurdle. But when you have statement after statement from Trump, who was the president of the United States, going back from 2017 to that latest Truth Social post, which was like, obviously, just go get them because we're becoming unpopular. Our credibility is hurting. But it was interesting. Not only I do think that was obviously very strong evidence for his case, but on a side note, you could see Trump's cognitive decline there so well. His posts in 2017 are sharp, like they're not sharp, but they're short and actually seem to have a point. And then you see as it progresses this term, it's these rambling long posts that make no sense. Anyway, complete side note. I just thought like actually seeing the post from 2017 onward was kind of stunning to see like how much worse Trump has gotten. But Comey concedes in his filing that this is a high hurdle, the one dismissing the charges outright. But as we know, Kilmar Garcia has already gotten a Judge Crenshaw, that they're allowed discovery on this same motion, saying that this was a vindictive prosecution, saying that there was a reasonable likelihood that the DOJ indicted him in a vindictive way. So there is precedent already showing that the DOJ is acting in an unequal manner, violating people's or criminal defendants' constitutional rights. So I think he has enough evidence in here to at least have the judge maybe do the same idea and have discovery on this. His motion regarding the fact that Lindsay Halligan wasn't appointed properly, I think is going to be the harder battle because of the fact that the Supreme Court has expanded the view on what a president can and cannot do. He had to file that motion. But that will probably ultimately go to the Supreme Court at some point, whether or not they take it up or they affirm a lower court's decision. But that one, to me, in this like realm that we see where the Supreme Court is allowing Trump to hire and fire agencies that they typically wouldn't, that one to me seems a little bit harder. But in terms of just flat out this being selective and vindictive, Trump himself has given the best evidence that could be given in a case like this.
I love one of the opening lines in Pat Fitzgerald's motion on behalf of Comey. It says, "The indictment is fatally flawed because it resulted from a paradigmatic violation of the Constitution's Appointments Clause, core element of separation of powers that defines when and how officers of the United States acquire their authority is to act." It's just so, like, he's so right. It's all about the separation of powers. He says the remedy is clear. The Supreme Court has repeatedly held the effect of this is nullity. And because no properly appointed executive branch official sought and obtained the indictment is equally nullity, which basically means he's saying she was not validly appointed, and therefore this indictment is invalid. Because, when you think about it, imagine if I was a prosecutor, but I'm no longer a prosecutor. I'm just, a normal person. Imagine if I claimed to have indictment power and I indicted someone and I went to court and tried to put them in jail. I mean, I'd be laughed out of court, right? I have no authority. I have no power. It's such a powerful thing that Congress has actually spoken. Congress actually passed a law that says this is how it's done. It's the Appointments Clause. And it's just preposterous to think that, you could just keep appointing new interims. You could just appoint someone for the 120 days, and then on the 119th day, you remove them and put someone else in, and then that starts the clock again for another 119 days, and then another 100. I mean, you could just keep doing that and completely get around the separation of powers that requires the checks and balances, the advice and consent of the Senate. I mean, it's kind of a preposterous thing that they're saying. Yes, I agree with you. God only knows what the Supreme Court's going to do. But I think it's a really strong argument that this is exactly what the statute specifically says. You get 120 days. You can put 4 people in to make up those 120 days, but you only have 120 days for that interim appointment, right? You can stack people within it. Yeah. But once that 120 days is up, the next thing that happens is the court is supposed to appoint someone. And they did here. And so you can't just now start the clock again. I don't know. I think they have a strong.
I think the problem was, though, is I wish he hadn't resigned, Siebert. If he hadn't resigned, but he had been fired, I think that is a much stronger argument for Comey.
Trump says he was fired.
Well, I know, but technically, yeah. So you're going to take a deposition to see, because Siebert said he resigned. This is why it's not as perfect of an argument for Comey as it should be. And honestly, this is like what happened with the FBI director, right? Who stepped down because he knew Trump was going to replace him. Do you remember leading up to the Trump admin? Why do they make it easy? They shouldn't make it easy. He shouldn't have resigned. He should have let Trump fire him, because you are allowing Trump to circumvent those exact laws. The FBI director wasn't supposed to be able to be fired by Trump, but by resigning, he created a vacancy to appoint Kash Patel. And the same thing I think happened with Siebert. It's too bad he decided to step down instead of letting Trump fire him. And then I think Comey's argument would be much stronger.
Well, I don't know. Trump says he fired him, so we'll see. We'll see what that turns out to be. What's interesting about the vindictive prosecution, which is the other motion, right? Not just the one about to disqualify her as U.S. attorney. The interesting thing about that is Fitzgerald did a great job at listing out all the information that led to this, right? It's just a brilliant kind of story. It told the story of how this is really vindictive. And vindictive prosecution basically means you're prosecuting someone vindictively because they exercise some sort of right. And the right here was his free protected speech. And Comey was somebody who spoke negatively. He was about Trump. And so he's saying that because he exercised his free speech, that's the vindictiveness. And that's why he's going against him. He's also making a selective prosecution argument, which essentially means other people similarly situated aren't prosecuted, and that as well. Look, also the case itself just substantively really sucks. Yeah. There's no way it makes out perjury. It just doesn't. And so either way, they just have a really tough road to hoe in this case. And, Trump, of course, is also now trying to get Pat Fitzgerald disqualified, saying that he has a conflict of interest because he may have had a part in leaking the information to the media on Comey's behalf, because Pat Fitzgerald was Comey's lawyer. So they want him off the case because he's such a great lawyer. I mean, they had to fly up. So all the career prosecutors in Virginia wouldn't take the case. So they brought up 2 people from, I think, North Carolina or South Carolina who are going to prosecute this case. And they're like, oh, look, slow it down. We need more time. And the judge is like, nope, you decided to bring this case. You're doing it. And so they want to get Pat Fitzgerald off the case because I think they know that he will outlawyer those certainly outlawyer Lindsay Halligan and those others. So that's what's going on there. And we'll see if it actually goes on January 5th. I'm not sure because I think that the judge will dismiss the case before then, and then they'll appeal it. And so I don't know that we're going to have a trial anytime soon, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And them trying to disqualify Comey's lawyer. I mean, all of this, the indictment against Comey, the indictment against Letitia James, criminal defendants in this country have such strong constitutional rights. It's one of the things our founders got right. Like, they forgot to put term limits into the presidency, but they knew the power of the government against somebody accused of a crime was so imbalanced, they needed to protect the criminal defendant. And that is coming into play. And a criminal defendant has a very strong right to have the counsel of their choosing. So it's not going to be that easy for the prosecution to get Patrick Fitzgerald disqualified. If they can truly show that he would be both a witness and a lawyer in this case, then even our professional legal responsibilities as a lawyer would have Patrick Fitzgerald step down voluntarily or have the judge disqualify him based on like an unfair trial. But, that's a stretch. Can they actually say it? We see the DOJ saying a whole bunch of stuff and not being able to prove it in court. But Comey, Letitia James, and all the rest who are going to get indicted by Trump have quite a bit of constitutional protections on their side, and they're going to need every single one of them.
Welcome back. We do the show on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Midas Touch Network, and then we put up commercial-free versions on Substack Live or Substack for Legal AF. If you're on Legal AF YouTube right now, hit the free subscribe button. That's the way we can continue to grow and be defended against the attacks from the Trump administration. It's free. We have no paywall. We've got no outside investors. Slide over to Legal AF Substack. What an amazing community there, including of our contributors. Written work, video work, all together in one place, live reporting, and it's only $6.77 a month. I'm not kidding. And then help the podcast. Wednesdays and Saturdays, 8 p.m. You can pick us up on Apple and Spotify, leave a 5-star review, and listen and download. With those downloads and what we do on YouTube, it makes us the #1 law and politics podcast out there. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popak. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.